So, festive mini make crochet along pattern number 4. Let's open the next 3 doors first and see what we get. Okay, so I think we've got a lot of blue, so I think for this tutorial we're going to make a little snowflake. So for this tutorial I think we're going to use the Sugar Mouse, but you don't need the Crochet Society yarn. You can use any DK light worsted weight yarn, so it's a yarn weight of 3. I think this will be a nice snowflake colour. With that I'm using a 4mm G crochet hook, and you're also going to need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle as well. I love these scissors. These came in the advent calendar and they are brilliant. I love how they just compact like that. It's brilliant. Okay, so let's begin. And hopefully you've been making your little rectangles for our final festive mini make, and I love putting them all together like this, like a little rainbow. I think it looks so satisfying. Anyway, let's crack on. We're going to grab our yarn and we are going to do a little slip knot to begin. Okay, so we'll do a little slip knot, and we're going to start off with a 4-chain loop, so you can use a magic ring as well. So we're just going to chain 1, 2, 3 and 4. Put our hook into our first chain. We're going to grab the yarn, bring it through the first chain and through the loop on our hook. We've got a little loop of chains joined at the beginning and the end, and in the center we are going to work 6 single crochets. This pattern's in US terms, so in UK terms it's going to be 6 double crochet. I'm just going to add a little chain 1 just for leverage. Then we're going to put our hook into the center. Be careful not to put it into the first chain. Put it into the center. Don't remove your hook, bad idea. Into the center. Grab the yarn, bring it through, and just wrapping it around the chains, we work a single crochet. And we want 6 of those. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And I've been yarning over the tail end as well, and because I've done that, it means, if I could show you without covering it, we can pull in the center hole. But if you can't do that, we can just use that tail end to sew the center closed. It doesn't really matter because it's a snowflake, so it'll still look nice with a hole. Then we're going to slip stitch into our first single crochet. So find the first single crochet, put your hook in there, grab the yarn over, bring it through the first single crochet and through the loop on your hook to do a slip stitch. Okay, then what we're going to do is we are going to chain 8. Okay, chain 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So chain 8, and then we're going to slip stitch in the same stitch as our previous slip stitch. So come all the way back down here and slip stitch into there. Okay, and then we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Okay, so you've got a big chain of loops, and we're going to repeat that all the way around. So chain 8 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Make sure you're facing the right direction. Slip stitch in the same stitch as your previous slip stitch. And then we slip stitch in the next stitch. Okay, so repeat that all the way around until you have 6 of these 8 chain loops. Okay, just working on the last little 8 chain loop, slip stitch in the same stitch. And then we're just going to finish up with a slip stitch in that same first stitch at the very beginning. We're going to slip stitch into there again. Okay, so we've got 6 8 chain loops. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to chain 5. Okay, so we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're going to chain 5. We're going to slip stitch in the next chain 8 space. So try and get it at right at the top there. We're going to slip stitch into there. Okay, so you've got this kind of shape. Then we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to work a double crochet between these 2 8 chain spaces. So in UK terms, that's going to be a treble. So double crochet, come all the way down the middle and find a stitch in the middle, one of these slip stitches, and we're going to just put our hook into maybe that second slip stitch and just work a double crochet. Pull through 2, pull through 2. Okay, so you've got a stitch in the middle. Then we're going to chain 2 again, 1 and 2, and we're going to slip stitch in the top of the next 8 chain space. Slip stitch into there. Okay, so we're going to repeat that all the way around. So we chain 2, work a double crochet in between. I'm going to pick that second little slip stitch to work into. If it's difficult to get into, you could just go into the front loop if you wanted. So work a little double crochet there. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and slip stitch in the top of the next 8 chain space. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that all the way around back to the beginning. Okay, when you get to the very last 8 chain space, we're going to finish up with chaining 2, and we're going to find these first chains we made, and I think it was chain 5, and we're going to slip stitch in the 3rd chain of 5. So count 1, 2, 3, and as neatly as you can, we're just going to slip stitch into there to join the round. Okay, and hopefully you got something that looks like this. Okay, moving on to the last round, we're going to slip stitch into the next 2 chains. So we're just going to slip stitch over. So we're going to, these last 2 chains, just slip stitch into there as neatly as you can. 1 and 2. And we're going to slip stitch in the next chain space again. So find this chain 8 space and just slip stitch into the top of there again, just over the top of the previous slip stitch is fine. Then we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. We're going to work a double crochet in the 3rd chain from our hook. So in UK terms, that's a treble. So the 3rd chain from our hook, we don't count the loop on our hook. There's 1, 2, 3. So in that 3rd chain down, we work a double crochet. Okay, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to slip stitch in that same 3rd chain. So go back into that 3rd chain again and slip stitch into there. You get this kind of like little rounded petal shape almost. Then we're going to chain 7. So chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. We're going to slip stitch this time in the 6th chain from our hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's basically that second one. Going to slip stitch into there. Okay. Then we're going to do a 4 double crochet puff stitch in that same chain. Okay, so to do a puff stitch, 4 double crochet puff stitch, just bring up a loop. I'm going to yarn over, and we're going to go back into that same 6th chain. Bring the yarn through, then bring it up, a loop up again. So you've got 3 loops. We're going to do that 3 more times. So yarn over into the chain, bring up a loop. Twice more, yarn over into the chain, bring up a loop. And once more, yarn over into the chain, bring up a loop. You end up with, I don't know how many loops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 loops on your hook. And we're just going to yarn over and pull through all those loops. And it just helps to point your hook downwards and just give it a little wiggle gently as it comes through all those loops. And that can happen, which is very frustrating. Can I catch it? This is the challenge. Do I leave it on camera? Do I edit this out? Oh, let's see, there it is. Let's grab it. Got to leave the mistakes in, you see. Oh, I caught it, bring it through. Yay, I saved it. A little 4 double crochet, a puff stitch. Okay, and after that, we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to slip stitch in that same chain again, which looks quite big now. That's 6th chain, slip stitch into there. So you end up with this like nice puffy circle at the end. Then we're going to repeat what we did this side. So we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Slip stitch in that same chain again. Slip stitch into there. Then we're going to move these 3 little circles out of the way and find these 2 chains down, find the next chain down here. You had this 1 chain left, it was our 7th chain. We're going to slip stitch into there, and then we're going to slip stitch in that big chain that we worked this little cluster in. So we're going to slip stitch into there. Okay, then we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, work a double crochet in that same chain, a double crochet, then chain 2 and slip stitch in there again. Okay, so that does the opposite side over here. Then we should have 2 chains. Make sure this is facing the right way. Make sure the tail's at the back. You should have 2 little chains left at the very beginning. We're going to slip stitch into those. So slip stitch in the next 2 chains, 1 and 2. And then we're going to slip stitch in the same chain 8 space as before. So go back in this chain 8 space and slip stitch into there. And that creates our little snowflake edging point of our snowflakes. So, okay, and then we just basically need to repeat that. So we're going to slip stitch over to the next chain 8 space. But the first thing we want to do is to slip stitch in the next 2 chain space. So just find the next 2 chain space, because it could be quite hard to see the chain 8 spaces. Slip stitch into that 2 chain space, and then slip stitch in the next 2 chain space. Just look for the next gap. And then the third one will be your chain 8 space. So we slip stitch into there. So it might be a little bit of an easier way of finding your chain 8 space. And we repeat all those steps. I'll show you one more time. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off by chaining 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Work a double crochet in the 3rd chain. 1, 2, 3. Double crochet in the 3rd chain. We chain 2. And we slip stitch in that 3rd chain again. So that gets our first little cluster bubble thing. Then we chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're going to a slip stitch in the 6th chain. So it's basically the second one along. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slip stitch into there. Then we do a 4 double crochet puff stitch. So remember to bring up a loop, yarn over into that same 6th chain and bring up a loop. Repeat that 4 more times. Yarn over, into chain, bring up a loop. 3 more. Yarn over, into chain, bring up a loop. Twice more, yarn over, into chain, bring up a loop. Once more, yarn over, into the chain, bring up a loop. Then we yarn over and pull through all those loops. Hopefully it goes right this time. Yes. And once we've done that, we chain 2, 1 and 2. And we slip stitch in that same chain. Slip stitch into there. Then we are going to lose our place. Chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We slip stitch in that same chain is where the big puff stitch is. We slip stitch into there again. Okay. Then we slip stitch in the next 2 chains. So we've got one chain in between our little clusters. We slip stitch into there. And then our second chain is this big one here where this first bobble is. So we slip stitch into there. Okay. Then we chain 2, 1 and 2. Work a double crochet in that same chain. Chain 2 again. Slip stitch in that same chain again. Okay. Then we slip stitch in the next 2 chains. 1 and 2, back to the main snowflake. And then we slip stitch in that same chain 8 space below. Okay, missed that. Chain 8 space, slip stitch. Then we need to slip stitch over to the next chain 8 space. So all we need to do is just find the next gap, slip stitch into there. Find the next gap, slip stitch into there. And then the next gap, the third one, will be your chain 8 space. So we slip stitch into there. And that is our second point made. So we're going to repeat that 4 more times and then we should have a finished snowflake. So I shall do that and then I shall come back. And if you'd like the written pattern so you can follow along, it's available for free on my website if you want to go check that out. Okay, so we have 6 points. Yep, it's not a quasi crystal. We're going to then just finish up by slip stitching in the last 2 chain 2 spaces, and then we're going to slip stitch in that first 8 chain space again, just to make sure we neaten up all our slip stitches so you get this lovely pattern around the center. And there we go, that's it. I'll just bring up a loop because I'm probably gonna not keep this particular snowflake. I'm going to, what you would do then is just cut your yarn and just pull the loop through, hide your tail ends, and you'd probably want to block these. So to block, all you need to do is just pin this, make it a little bit damp, and be careful if you've used wool yarn. If you used acrylic, it's fine. We're just going to make it a bit damp, pin it into place, and then let it dry, and then it should keep its shape. But it's pretty good shape already. It's very pretty. And also I have designed this snowflake, which is a chunky yarn snowflake, which you can find as a YouTube short. Is it reels or shorts? I don't know. On my channel as well. So I'll put a link to that as well. It's kind of a really quick, chunky snowflake. But I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Hope you managed to follow along and not daydream and get lost like I did halfway through. And a huge thank you as always to our HappyBerry Plus members and our YouTube members for helping make these tutorials possible. I'll put the written patterns on my website. You can go check those out for free. And I will see you soon for some more crochet crafting fun. Join me on Monday for our next festive mini make. And thank you for watching. Bye.